All right, Evan, welcome back for another episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Wednesday, July 6th, 2022. If you're not done so already, give you a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, here, so market's managing to scratch out a decent gain here today. You take a look at the spiders here. Basically, a little bit of a daily doji. We had a gap up. We came off the highs. I said to the members in our forum today, I said, look, we had a little gap up here, but we're probably going to have to do some backing and filling this morning as we really just bottomed around 11 and just chugged higher all of yesterday here. So a little short-term overbought. We got some consolidation. We had the Fed minutes, a little bit of a bid there, and then just kind of faded off the highs. Again, market's still a little short-term overbought there. The important thing to me, though, is that we did pull back a little bit here, but we held the gains. So last several Fed days, we've had a nice rally the day before or the day of, and the previous day, specifically the Fed minutes days, not the FOMC days themselves, but the Fed minutes days, we had a rally the day before, and then the Fed minutes day, there was a fade. And, we were able to hold the gains today. So we'll leave it at that. Big tech did do a lot of the lifting. Apple and Microsoft having nice days here. Apple up 1% there. Microsoft up 1.29. And Google there up 1.16, that huge surge on Google yesterday. Remember that big move there. Now back above that 50-day moving average. So a nice little move there for Google. And big tech doing a lot of the work. We had a lot of growth stocks yesterday doing the heavy lifting. A lot of those names did pull back. Some of the smaller growth names on my screen. We talked about Carvana, which we owned yesterday. Just took 15% gain on that one. That one did pull back in. Shopify, which had a huge day, pulling back in as well. So some of those growth names did need to pause after that huge surge yesterday, but the big story, and you can see even the Russell 2000 actually pulled back here, as yesterday was a nice small cap day for small caps in general, but down 75 basis points today. Generally big surge, no surprise. You need to have a little bit of a pause day or consolidation, but the big takeaway here is that we did hold the gains. The market caught up a little bit. We talked about the distortions yesterday. The NASDAQ really kind of distorted versus everything else. The Dow did start to catch up a little bit. It was much more of an in-tune kind of market here as opposed to how skewed it was yesterday and how the rotation was going on. We talked about rotation out of fins and energy and into tech. And it was a little bit more of a kind of positively correlated market, we'll say, for the most part today. But again, big takeaway, we did hold the gains. Nothing terrible happened here. But again, just like I said yesterday, we still have to see follow through. So take a look at the spiders. No real problems. Closed right on that 20-period moving average. Maybe it does need to do some backing and filling again tomorrow. I wouldn't rule that out. But at this point, it could still push higher. I wouldn't rule that out tomorrow. You could make a case, even though we were green today, this was kind of a pause candle, a little bit of a pause day. So again, we'll just have to see what we get tomorrow. Triple Q, same kind of thing, but did close above that 20-period moving average. So a little bit of a good sign there. Short term, nothing crazy, but it's still a short term sign of strength there for the triple Qs. Dow did recover after finishing red yesterday. Again, closing basically right on that 20, and then the IWM pulling back off the 20. So again, let's not make any bones about it. Market is still in a weaker technical position, big picture, still below all these moving averages for the most part. But again, seasonality does favor some upside here, as well as the cycle work I've done, which has been pretty spot on really all year long. And from what I'm seeing, we should have a move up here over the next couple of weeks. But again, we'll have to see follow through. This market has been a surprise, needless to say, all year long. Anyways, SMH here. So semis, again, nice pop, up 68 basis points. Still not above this red bar high. If you can get above that, I would give it the upside bias to 210. But again, decent day there for the semis. IGV here, same kind of deal, closing right on that 50 moving average. And again, we've talked about this. Cloud has been one of the leaders over the last couple of months. But nice little, again, possible W and then kind of a V pattern there shaping up. So we'll see if we get some follow through there. But Cloud holding up okay. Biotech continuing to hold up. It was flattish here, but look how overbought it was in the short term, anyways. But coming after a really oversold condition. If I can get my mouse to work, there we go. So look at how oversold this was, and coming down, nice little W bottom, and then a little bit of a flag here and a pop, went right into these pivots here. So that is into resistance, but again, biotech getting a nice squeeze here off the lows, as it, let's face it, I mean, it's basically fell off a cliff here and retraced all of the gains from 2020 to 2021. This is one of the sectors where, even if we really start to head lower in the actual the rest of the market, I could see this one actually not taking out these lows, since you've already tested the pandemic lows. I mean, I can't really see it getting that much lower. I think a lot of the risk is priced in these names, but some of these names are just so beaten down that even if the market was to head lower, it's like there's not that much downside left. I mean, we talked about these growth stocks like Carvana, the Shopifys of the world. We talked about Pinterest yesterday. Like, some of these names are just so beaten down that it's like, it's almost like the worst has been priced in here. So anyways, just food for thought there. Let's move on here. So transports, kind of a whippy day here. Take a look intraday. Tried to get a bid in the morning and then gapped down and then came right back up, and you finished well off the lows. So at least a little bit of sign of relative strength there for the transports, even though it did finish red. I like that it came off the lows and it held that. So that is a short-term good sign, dude. There you do have a little bit of an inside bar. So we'll see if it can push up tomorrow, but it is below all these moving averages. So again, let's not make any bones about it. It's in a weak technical position. This has been tough for the transports to rally, even with crude prices pulling back in, which we'll get into shortly. But again, transports coming off the lows. We'll see if we can get some follow through tomorrow. Yields here, again, coming into this gap here, we said that was going to be support, and we got a nice bounce here. So it does look like we're getting a technical bounce. On the 10-year, by the way, 2s and 10s are inverted, as are 5s and 10s. So the longer that this goes on, the more of a negative that will be for the market. So just be aware of that. The market won't react to it right away, at least not in the most negative way that it can, but it will the longer it goes on. So just be aware of that. With 30-year, same thing, went right into this gap, didn't quite fill it, got a nice bounce here. So that leads me to believe we could, make a lower high and come down here and fill it at some point. Again, I still think yields are going to be in backing and filling mode, at least for now. And, I'm expecting the 10-year probably to come back down to that 2.4, 2.5 area. But again, I got a nice bounce today. We'll see if it puts in a lower high. And again, just leave it at that. It's really kind of an inactive day so far. It was just really a choppy session. It's not, don't want to make too much out of the action. You see HYG here, basically just an inside day. So nothing too eventful going on there either. Homebuilders, which got a nice move off the lows here. XHB, again, nothing wrong here. Little doji inside day. And, just a pause after a big surge yesterday. Same thing with the ITB, stalling out at that 50 and that gap fill. So that's going to have some trouble moving higher. Again, I don't see these going much higher here, but I do think they have a shot to make another leg up, maybe to that 59 area. So I wouldn't rule that out, but again, into a little bit resistance short term, so may need to do some more consolidation. And then VNQ as well. Just really struggling with this breakdown area, 93.50, that big gap, and that was your breakdown pivot right there. You also have that gap above that. So it is trying to chop. It's trying to do some backhand filling for a move through that. Again, but I think the upside is somewhat limited here. All right, so moving on to fins. So again, fins week. We talked about that yesterday. XLF, down 25 basis points here today. Still inside of this green bar, but again, you're in a downtrend, so we have to respect that. But again, with the inverted yield curve, that is making it tough for financials to do anything. XBD, on the other hand, which is broker dealers, actually holding up okay. Nice little pop yesterday, and then a pull back today. Again, won't make too much out of it here, but the longer that yield curve stays inverted, the worse it is for these financial names. Anyways, crude here. We touched on that earlier, got all the way down, almost 95 bucks, 95.10, just kissed that area, and then a bounce. We talked about the lower lows today. I think this gets down. I think this is going into backhand filling mode, guys. We broke that trend line. We confirmed it today. On the 50, or the 50, the weekly, Still above that 50 moving average, but we are below that 20 period moving average now for the first time, really since what, November or December of last year. Now, I mean, they could save it in the next 2 days, but that would require a massive rally here on crude. So I do expect that to break on a weekly basis, which tells me that crude goes into backing and filling mode here. And again, this is also a midterm kind of seasonality thing here too with crude, which is one of the reasons why I was saying not to chase energy. I do think, you know, energy does need to do backing and filling, at least a lot more of it. But again, crude pulling in nicely, getting a bit off that 95 handle. You know, maybe it gets a little counter trend bounce over the next couple of days. It is a little oversold short term, but you know, for what it's worth, again, the strong dollar is putting a lot of pressure on everything, as is that inverted yield curve. So that is really the story there. XLE, same thing, right into that 200, bounced off of it. It is minor support. You know, you came down pretty close. I would have liked it a lot better if we came straight into it. But you know, you got to bounce, ping-ponged here, and then came back down. Let's not make too much out of it. There's a bit of a level here, so we'll see if we can get a reaction there. XOP, same thing. I like this. It's got a lot of support right in this zone here, and it finished with a nice tail candle, so maybe you can get a little bit in the short term. The OIH also kind of going right into this little pivot here. Let's draw this right on. Right in that 202 area, basically kissed it. You also have a gap window and a gap fill right there. So a nice little tail candle. So maybe the OIH and some of these energy stocks that were so oversold can get a little bit of a bid over the next couple of days, at least for a snapback rally there. And then nat gas also kind of just hanging in there on the daily, just really wedged into this lower range around 550. Won't make too much more out of that. Dollar index continues to be strong. It's, you know, investors are wondering where they can put their money right now because bonds haven't performed very well. They're starting to perform well, but it's really in dollars right now and people moving into cash. And we have currencies performing very poorly against the dollars. You know, things are much worse in Europe and Japan, and the dollar is gaining on those currencies. So is what it is here. I still have this penciled in for 108.50. There's a chance you could have a blowout. You know, if we have a blow off top, it could blow that level out a little bit. But overall, the dollar remains strong, but I do think it's starting to get on borrowed time here. It's just, you know, you're already overbought and now you're going parabolic. And that's really how trends end. You know, when you get overbought and you go parabolic at the end of an overbought move, it's usually what it looks like right before the end, but not quite there yet. It does have a little bit more room to run, and the dollar, strong dollar, putting pressure on gold. So that weekly inside bar we talked about is playing out here. I still have gold headed a little bit lower here in the near term, or excuse me, in the, I would say medium term, maybe the next couple of weeks here. Near term, it may get a little bit of a bounce as it's getting a little oversold here, but overall under pressure. That weekly inside bar is playing out. Silver, I told you guys that was going to go to 19. That got there and finished with a nice tail candle. So some of these base and industrial metals coming into some decent levels here. But silver coming off the lows, very oversold here. Got a nice tail, so that should get a bounce here for at least for a retest to 2050, maybe $21 in the short term. Platinum also into a good level here, getting a nice bounce. Palladium seems to be kind of indifferent to everything that's going on here, and just kind of marching to the beat of its own drum. And then copper, take a look at the move on copper here yesterday. Look how oversold. This was above 450 really a month ago. And look at the collapse down to below let's say 327 there. This is into a good level short term. So we did, yesterday I said it might cut through that weekly 200. We got through that. So nice little bounce there. And then if you take a look on the monthly, we've got the monthly 50 and this pivot high. So this is a good level here for copper. It should get a bounce. I think there's a bigger level a little bit lower, but near term, this should bounce here. I mean, just look how oversold it is. I mean, huge move. And that's what happens with these commodities. They spike up and then they come down and they take the elevator back down. So, but a nice move there for copper and some of these base and industrial metals getting really oversold and due for a nice bounce. Anyways, Bitcoin here. Lastly, this is starting to shape up just a little bit. So you are getting, you know, you're back above that 20 moving average. It is minor. The 20 moving average is minor. You're doing so much consolidating beneath it. But for what it's worth, from a technical standpoint, you're no longer below it, and you're no longer, heavily oversold. And, it is trying to, put it in kind of a micro little, if you look on the hourly, you can kind of see it a little bit better here. We had that nice kind of surge up, and, we're trying to just kind of consolidate inside of that. Maybe this wasn't the best. Maybe you can see it better on the 4-hour here. Yeah, so nice little pop up, and it's trying to put in kind of like a rounded bottom here. The last 2 days did have an inside kind of hammer candle, and then another inside hammer today. So, it's setting up for, possibly a pop. If this does get a bid, that would bode well for equities, I think. Short term, you've got 22.5 right there. That's pivot. If you get above that, you got to give it the upside bias to about 25K. So, Bitcoin looking a little bit better here, but again, it's got a lot of work to do. It's got its work cut out for it. But again, crypto really green across the board. Ether having a nice day. Doge, decent move. Polkadot. Doge actually looks okay. Looks a lot better than Bitcoin even. Nice little kind of rounded consolidation pattern there. But all things considered, if crypto can get a bid, that would probably bode well for equities. At least would probably say that at least there's some kind of money flow back into risk assets. Much like we saw yesterday. We talked about, Carvana, Shopify, Pinterest, those kind of growth, ARK, those types of names, Zoom, all got really nice bids today or yesterday. And a lot of them held, a lot of their gains today, if not just a little bit of a pullback. So again, we'll see what we get here. Tomorrow we do need follow through, but it is a little bit encouraging that we saw the market kind of hold its gains today and not fade like it has on previous Fed minutes days. Anyways, guys, going to wrap it up here. We'll see what we get tomorrow. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com, and I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.